didn't camp on, you would just be standing there with all these people on the avenue. Okay. And then he says, you know, it would be great if you were like sort of the leader of these people. Okay. He said, would you put this bicycle through this guy's chest? Sure. Next thing I know, I was in the whole movie. I just showed up just to watch the film. What's that?
How did you become a rock star?
Oh, well, like you start when you're about your age. Start playing guitar right now. Listen to all the right people. I tell every young band, they go, what should we do? I said, listen to the Beatles. They were the best songwriters, so listen to the Beatles. And then, for the energy level, watch Pete Townsend. Pete Townsend's 77 years old, and he's still angry. His knuckles are still bleeding when he plays the guitar, and that's the attitude you want in rock and roll. So write your own songs. It's really two entirely different things. When you're on film, every little move you make is a big move. When you're on stage, you're playing to the back of the room, so you need big moves. It's so funny because with Johnny Depp being in the Vampires with us, he's a screen actor, right? I'm a stage actor. So the thing about it is, we talk about this all the time. And, when he got on stage, I said, make your moves big. And he says, I'm so used to making small moves on film, you know. But that's really the difference right there. So on stage, you have to play to the very back of the audience, and so enormous moves. And the ego has to stay in check. I tell my band all the time, I want your stage, when you're on stage, I want you dripping with ego. Because the audience wants the rock stars to be rock stars. Off stage, I don't want to see any ego at all. We were doing Welcome to My Nightmare, and we had this whole soliloquy there about this spider museum. And we kept saying, who are we going to get to do this? There's got to be a voice that everybody knows, you know, and we kept thinking, oh, Noel Brooks is gone, Karloff is gone, all these different great voices. And somebody said, Vincent Price, and I went, oh, I'll never take that. So we called him, and he said, I'll be right there.
Oh, that's awesome.
He shows up, and he rewrites some of it, and he did the whole thing, and then he was in the video with us in Toronto. And then he says, can I do this on stage with you? And I'm like, yeah. Vincent Price. So we actually he was part of the band, literally, for a while. And the nicest person you could imagine. I mean, but he's Vincent Price, and he's such a nice guy. Yeah, I got along with him really well.
Thank you.
The Muppets was probably the most fun week I ever had in my life. I almost didn't do the show, because at the time, I had established myself as the scariest human being on the planet, right? And they said, well, you wouldn't do the Muppets. And I went, I love the Muppets, but I don't want to water down the image. And I said, who's done the show recently? And they said, well, you see Christopher Lee, Vincent Price. I went, I'm in. And after a while, you literally start talking to the Muppets as people. Because, you know, Miss Piggy will be here, and she'll lead over the scene, and she goes, what are you going to have for lunch? I'm like, I don't know. Where should we go? And you're talking to them like they're humans. Because that's how they come off. So, I mean, that was the most fun I ever had. You know, one of the reasons I took that part in that movie was the fact that I got to work with George Martin. That was one of the real reasons I wanted to do it. So I got there, and the Bee Gees were doing the background vocals on it, who were, you know, next to the Beatles, they're probably the best. And there's, you know, George Martin. And so I did the first version of it, and I could imitate John pretty well, John Lennon. So I did that version, and he said, well, that's good, but how would I do it? So I did it the way that this character would do it. And they were laughing because it was, John Lennon called up and he says, only Alice could take our prettiest song and turn it into a threat.
Did you choose it?
I didn't choose the song, that was the one they wanted.
Like you want me to do it?
Yeah.
And anything on a new Alice Cooper group album?
It's good. I can just say that, yeah.
All right.
I was 15 years old, and I was painting a house. And it was summertime, and I had the radio on, and I heard, "She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah," which was a Beatles song. And I went, "Wow, what was that?" That was different than anything else I'd ever heard on the radio. And then an hour later, I heard, "I Want to Hold Your Hand" by the Beatles. And then I heard "Please, Please Me" by the Beatles. Pretty soon, I told my brother, I said, "Are you listening to this? Who are these guys?" And I immediately wanted to be in a band. So that was how I started. Because I wanted to, I think every kid in the world wanted to be in a band at that point. And we weren't expecting this to go on for 60 years. We always figured when you got to 30, it was over. Shadows. Well, Tim Burton and Jim and John were both big Alice fans. And they both wanted me to do "Till I Cry," "Till I Cry." And that was their favorite song. And I went, "Sure, we can do that." Now, in order, if you remember, the movie takes place in 1972.
Yeah.
So they had to do this thing, this kind of cosmetic thing, where they have all kinds of things on their face, and they actually take you back to 1972 to what what your face looked like in 72. Really interesting how they did it. And they wanted me to be in it. And I said, okay, I'd never met John before. So, that was like the first one. So it was like a lifelong relationship that I had. And what was the other part of it?
How was it working with Tim Burton?
Oh, Tim Burton was great. We ended up, the Vampires played in Europe, and we ended up in Transylvania. And we went to Castle Dracula. And Tim Burton went with us. So here's the Hollywood Vampires and Tim Burton in the castle. And they had a dinner for us there. And you said, dinner. I mean, this was the real deal. I said, this is perfect. I can't think of anybody else I'd want in here, other than these people. But it was really pretty creepy. You wouldn't want to spend the night there. Mike Myers. I'm a Myers guy. Yeah. This is going to surprise you. Salem's Lot. The original Salem's Lot were David Soul and Jim smashing on the window. There were about 6 or 7 scenes in that movie that were truly terrifying. It had a lot to do with the music.
Yes.
Barlow was by far the scariest vampire. I mean, they kept talking about it, and you never saw him. They kept talking about it, and finally the guys in the jail, and you just see this whole face pops up like this. My daughter was 3 years old, and she ran into the wall.
That's awesome.
And I mean, to this day, though, there were 5 or 6 scenes in that movie that were absolutely stunning. When he breaks through the window and it just comes to life, And teacher.
It's still really
sitting there. It's truly made. It was made for TV, and it's truly one of the best horror movies of all time. The name of the band was Alice Cooper, and I was Jim's lead singer. But everybody called me Alice. They just figured that the lead singer was the focal point, and I was the most theatrical thing in the show. So immediately I became Alice. So I literally changed my name to Alice in 1974, I think it was. And then the name of the band was still Alice Cooper, but we split 5 ways. I wasn't the main thing. But it was just more convenient. I did all the interviews and I did this and that, so I became Alice.
Thank you.
And Frank was, the thing about Frank is everybody thought he was the biggest freak on the planet. He never got high. He drank beer sometimes. He was one of the greatest guitar players ever on the planet. If you ask any other guitar player listening, who the really great guitar players are, Frank Zappa was one of them. If you ask Clapton, if you ask any of those guys, that was Zappa. So he was a very underrated guitar player. Nobody really understood how good he was. Yeah. And he was, when we started, every record company refused. They didn't want any part of us. Everybody was peace and love, and we were more Clockwork Orange, you know. We didn't mind a little violence on stage. Everybody in our band had stitches at some point, you know, because it's just that. I like the idea of rock and roll being a little more violent. And that was totally against what everybody was into at that point. So nobody would touch us except Frank. And he saw us play and he says, well, there's 4,000 people in the place. The Doors come on and play, and Jefferson Airplane comes on and play, and we go on. We cleared the room in 3 songs because everybody was on acid, and they were all grooving, and we were a pretty bad trip, you know. So when he saw that, he went, "Oh, I gotta have that." Yeah, Frank was the best.
Thank you.
Things started coming together like that. Stan Lee was an Alice Cooper fan, you know, and he says, I would love to make Alice some sort of Marvel character, you know. And so when he took From the Inside, which is a whole story about my stay in the hospital, and all the characters. And the great thing about it was they draw you with really good abs. You don't have to work for your abs. He gave me like Spider-Man's body, which I really thank him for. That was really, you know. And, but, you know, just to be Stan Lee was one of the funniest guys you've ever met in your life. People thought he was, in the end, a little bit senile and all that, not a bit. He was sharp as a tack. I mean, the guy was very, very funny. And I was really privileged to be a Marvel comic character. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Allison.
A lot of people thought there was a conflict between me and Kiss because we were up first with the makeup and all that, and then Kiss came out. We told Kiss where to buy their makeup. I mean, we knew who they were, and I knew Gene and Paul and everything, and they decided to go with a kabuki makeup. And I said, that's great. Nobody's gonna give you any help for that, you know. So they did a very smart thing. They created 4 comic book characters. Alice was sort of, you know, the Phantom of the Opera. Bowie was the space guy. You know, everybody took on a different character. So, you know, I never had a problem with Kiss. They were always good friends of mine. You know, and same with Bowie. Bowie and I never had a problem. You know, I had no idea how much fun that movie was till I saw it. You know, I mean, I knew my scenes, and my daughter was absolutely the bartender, or the waitress in there. I was the bartender. And, you know, of course, you're going to see the movie at the end. I'm actually from a different breed of vampire. You know, these vampires that were really badass were nothing compared to me. You know? So, but it was a very funny movie. I was laughing so hard through this movie. At one point, the girl has got a flavor straw on the guy's throat. The other picture walks in.
You drank the gun.
The guy walks in and she goes, it's not what you think. Yeah. No, that movie was brilliantly, and the cast, Iggy was in it, and Malcolm McDowell. Yeah, I mean, it was really fun. If you haven't seen Suck, it's a good comedy, pretty good comedy, and pretty brutal in places. Yeah.
Why did you write schools out for summer?
Do you like school? All right, that's the answer right there. Here's the juxtaposition of that, is the fact that generally when you're gonna write an anthem, you have to find something that everybody agrees with, forever. The first anthem I really ever heard was My Generation by The Who. You know, I mean, every kid, 100 years from now, will hear that song and go, yeah, that's me. You know. Everybody loved the last day of school before the summer vacation. And there's that last 3 minutes when you're sitting in class. And that 3 minutes goes on forever. Because as soon as it hits, you're done for 3 months. So I said, if I can capture that 3 minutes in a song, I said, that's going to be an anthem. I get emails from India, from Mongolia. So when I stay at school, the plan school's out. The crazy thing was, I loved school. I was Ferris Bueller. I mean, I basically ran my school, you know, and never did a bit of homework. You know, and I was, when I saw the movie Ferris Bueller, I went, oh my gosh, it's me. And so I loved high school. It was so much fun. Because it was at a time when everybody was shocked by everything we did. And trust me, they thought we were these horrible people. We were laughing so hard. And most of the stuff we never did. The audience invented it themselves. I'll tell you the chicken story, okay? All right. So I'm on stage in Toronto. The Doors were on right before us, and John Lennon's on right after us. And 60,000 people. And at the end of the show, we opened up 2 white feather pillows and hit them with a CO2 cartridge, so protect them. And then put a strobe light on it. I mean, it's a magnificent ending. And I look down, and there's a white chicken on stage. Now, I didn't bring the chicken. And I'm thinking about it. So there's a guy there going, I got my keys and my wallet and my chicken. Okay, let's go. So I didn't think about it, but I went, okay, I'm from Detroit. I've never been on a farm in my life. It had wings, it had feathers, it should fly. And I picked it up and I tossed it into the audience, thinking that it would fly and somebody would take it home and they'd call it Alice and they'd have a pet. The audience tore it to pieces and threw the parts back on stage. So the very next day, Frank Zappa calls me up and said, did you kill a chicken on stage? And I went, no. And he said, don't tell anybody, they love it. And that's when I realized that rock needed a villain. And there were a lot of Peter Pans and no Captain Hook. And I went, I will gladly be the Captain Hook. But that's not the worst part of the story. The first 6 rows in the audience were all in wheelchairs. They were the ones that killed the chicken. Which made it even more bizarre. You know, I mean, I looked down and I went, so if I fell in the audience. So the chicken story went on forever, and that was the root of banning Alice Cooper all over the world. When England tried to ban us, the record went right to #1, and we sold out Wembley Stadium because they wanted to see what they're not allowed to see. To this day, I've never killed a chicken. I have a picture of me and Colonel Sanders. This guy's killed billions of chickens. I was accused of killing, and I'm the bad guy.